Howdy y'all, my name is Dave, this is the Anime Field Guide podcast, and you are listening to the Studio Rundown. This is my series where I go through the history of anime production houses across Japan. Today's episode features Studio Bones. Studio Bones was founded in October 1998 by three former producers from Studio Sunrise, chiefly hailing from Sunrise's Studio 2 division. The founding idea was to pursue original animation projects without being bound to toys or model kit marketing. Basically, they were feeling suffocated within the very corporate structure of Sunrise, so they wanted a space to create more freely. Now, of course, if you are a more recent fan of Bones, especially in the 2010s and the 2020s, this may come as a somewhat surprise, as Bones is seen more nowadays as a adaptation studio, but its true heart and origins, and still I think that its true creative heart lies in the original anime projects. And of course, we'll run through all of that and more, beginning with the breakdown of the founders, starting with studio president Masahiko Minami. His experience with Sunrise begins with Churiki Robot Gallant and Mobile Suit Zeta Gundam. He was also production desk on City Hunter, and some of his big works as a producer with Sunrise were Mobile Fighter G Gundam, The Vision of Escaflowne, and Cowboy Bebop. Our second founder, Toshihiro Kawamoto, character designers across Cowboy Bebop and some Gundam OVA series, Stardust Memory, and 8th MS Team. He's also a character designer for Bones series, A Wolf's Reign, as well as key animation for Fullmetal Alchemist, or of the Stranger, or on High School Host Club, several others. And lastly, we have Hiroshi Osaka, who passed away from cancer in 2007. He was one of the animation directors on Samurai Troopers, as well as Cowboy Bebop, character designs and chief animation for Victory Gundam, G Gundam, Clockwork Fighters, Vision of Escaflowne, and Mars Daybreak. So these men were attached to Studio 2 at Sunrise, the aforementioned production house for Bebop, Escaflowne, G Gundam, and 0083 Stardust Memories. So again, Studio Bones was established in October of 1998, establishing its main office in Igusa, Suginami Ward, Tokyo. The original staff was only 8 people, so a bare bones team that would be fleshed out over time, as well as referencing a Showa-era song, Love Me to the Bone. Now, the first projects of the studio were actually more of a collaboration with Sunrise, but unlike most studios that begin maybe as a subsidiary of a bigger company, they were independent from the start. And per interviews with Minami-san, the Bones team rented a small space in the Studio 2 space, and were also supplied with personnel and assistants from Sunrise, taking on single projects at a time for roughly their first 3 years. So from 1998 to 2001, their first projects were the films Cowboy Bebop, Knocking on Heaven's Door, as well as the Escaflowne film. So the founders were actually still working on the Bebop TV series under Shinichiro Watanabe when they quit Sunrise, but they still remained on staff to finish the show, and then Watanabe-san collaborated with them for the Bebop movie, which is how you see in the credits for the film, produced, created by Sunrise, but animated by Bones. Bones gets the animation credit. The studio's first original series was called Clockwork Fighter Heroes War, which was premiered in October of 2000. It was an original script by Sho Aikawa, who would become a regular writer for the studio, directed by Tetsuro Amino of Macross 7 and others. It's a clockwork steampunk mecha piloted by a band of kids on a quest across Japan during the Meiji era as they track down a villainous band of clockwork bandits. Bones' second television anime was Angelic Layer, based on the manga by Clamp. But this is a kid moves to Tokyo to live with her aunt and stumbles into the world of custom battle dolls in a tournament and things called the Angelic Layer. So again, it's generally in the same universe as Choba. It's like set in the future. And so this began as a skeleton crew out of a spare office at Sunrise and steadily amassed into more than the 100 plus employees of today. And as the size of the company grew, Bones would, of course, move into their own building and then began to subdivide their staff into also studios, air quotes, to handle multiple ongoing projects at once. As each studio came online, they're each headed by a producer. All the producers collaborate. They sometimes share staff in between projects as well, but each area also has its own productions that they focus on. So in a manner similar to Sunrise's structure, And labeling begins with Studio A, that's the founding one. B and C came online in short fashion in the early 2000s. Studio D was formed around 2009. E in the 2010s for the Eureka 7 films. And the newest Studio F came online around 2024. It's a new studio located in a new building. And I don't believe at the time of this recording, we don't know what the studios are working on right now. But when Studio B came online, this was to work on another anime original series. And again, it's a robot show, Razafon, in 2002. This was created and directed by Yutaka Izubuchi, so he's got credits for Patlabor, Lotus War, Gundam Wing, as well as several tokusatsu series, Dynaman, Changeman, Kamen Rider, Agito. So Razafon leans more into the mystical end of the super robot spectrum, with chief influence being from Yusha Raiden from the 70s, but Razafon by association is compared to Neon Genesis Evangelion, as well as almost every robot show dealing with superpowers and the occult at that time. Studio C was formed with the production of 2003's Full Metal Alchemist, which was first major franchise hit. So Full Metal Alchemist, if you don't know, it's a fictionalized early 20th century European country called Amestris. Two brothers, Edward and Alphonse Elric, lose their mother at a young age, and so they teach themselves alchemy and decide to undertake an experiment to transmute their mother back to life. So of course the experiment fails, and in the backlash of the energy they unleash, Edward loses an arm and a leg, while Alphonse loses his entire body. Ed is barely able to rescue his brother's soul by bonding it to a nearby suit of armor. Thus, they undertake a new quest to restore their bodies by searching for a mystical artifact called the Philosopher's Stone. However, this quest for the Philosopher's Stone will of course be fraught with danger, and all the dark forces who have controlled their country from the shadows will begin to stir. So this is the smash hit manga authored by Hiromu Arakawa. It began in 2001 and it finished in around 2010. It remains a big deal, and at the time it was one of the most popular manga ever, and this adaptation rocketed Bones straight up to mainstream status, not even like 5 years after their founding, which is interesting to look back on today if you can find it, because it's been vanished off of Crunchyroll and everywhere else for about a year now, including its sequel film released in July of 2005, The Conqueror of Shambhala. And so this is a sequel to the original series ending, the anime original ending of Full Metal Alchemist. And the idea basically was to turn Full Metal Alchemist into the next franchise big thing and just continue down this original path. But of course, as you may know, something else happened in 2009, which we'll get to. Also in 2003, this was a really big year for Bones. It was a solid run of original series. You had Wolf's Reign. So this was created and written by Bebop writer Keiko Nobumoto alongside the rising star director Tensai Okumura, with, again, soundtrack by Yoko Kanno. Wolf's Reign is in a wintry post-apocalyptic Earth where an old legend speaks of a lost land of paradise that only wolves can find. However, wolves are extinct, or that's what they would like you to think, as they've actually disguised themselves as humans for the past couple of centuries, and now things are finally at a point where it's just getting really bad, and so an outcast band of wolves packed together in order to find paradise, but of course, now that their identities are discovered, they are now hunted by humans who also want paradise. And yeah, this series did very well in Japan. It was also especially popular on Adult Swim in the United States. I also want to shout out a low fantasy forgotten gem of Bones' catalog. In between Wolf's Reign and Full Metal Alchemist, you had this other adaptation of a light novel and manga series written by Ichiro Sakaki. This is Scrapped Princess, where it's two girls born to a royal family, but our hero, Pacifica, is abandoned at birth. There's basically a dark prophecy that says she's going to destroy the world if she's allowed to reach her 16th birthday. So Pacifica is rescued, raised, and guarded by her foster family, who also happen to be adventurers and join her on her journey when she seeks her ultimate destiny of travel the world and find out, why is there a dark prophecy about me and what's, who made it and all that stuff. Scrap Princess is a really solid series, and it just kind of got buried in the middle of everything else. But other sci-fi series by Bones, Bones was basically on a sci-fi fantasy kick for most of its early run. But this includes Mars Daybreak, which is from summer 2004. Again, it's a television series. Humanity lives underwater under the icy oceans of Mars. So this actually features a scuba diving mecha, as well as this was actually created to, partially promote a PlayStation 2 game, which came out in July of 2005. So this was actually working with Sony Computer Entertainment. We also have Kurao, Phantom Memory. I'm sure I butchered that title. Also in summer of 2004, also a science fiction series, but something more like slower paced and emotional. Our main character is essentially struck with a mysterious energy that transforms her into light particles, but she's reassembled by mysterious beings who live within that energy, so something like Ant-Man's quantum realm. And as a consequence of all of this, she also gets superpowers. 2005 is also a really big year for Bones on one of their big original franchises. I'm, of course, talking about Eureka 7. This is the television anime directorial debut for Tomoki Kyoda, with series composition by Dai Sato, again, another Bebop writer, as well as he was a writer for Wolf's Rain. He went over to Production IG to help with Ghost in the Shell standalone complex, Bones with Mars Daybreak, and then he joined Watanabe-san over at Manglobe for Samurai Champloo. So Eureka 7, it's the anime with surfing robots. Character names, locations, episode titles are all referencing music titles and things from the 80s and 90s club scene. The initial run of Eureka 7 was a massive success. I mean, this got a ton of manga, a lot of light novel adaptations. It's been video games, collaborations, as well as prequels and sequels, which I'll just mention here for the sake of completion rather than just jump in and out of here. So running through Eureka 7, we start back in 2009 with the film adaptation of the television series Good Night, Sleep Tight, Young Lovers. This was co-produced with Cinema Citrus, so there is a rundown of Cinema Citrus earlier in the back catalog, and it's not the first time Bones would collaborate with the studio either. Eureka 7 AO, this is the sequel TV series to the main show, along with a side movie in the same year. There's an expanded version of AO's last episode in 2017 as a web series. It's called Final Episode One More Time. And last but not least, we have the movie trilogy, which is both a retelling of the series as well as its own stories, kind of like an original deal. The first two movies came out in 2017 and 2018. But then movie 3 didn't release until November of 2021. It had a lot of production delays plus the pandemic. Jumping back to 2006 then, after the initial run of Eureka 7, they had some more adaptations. So the science fiction manga Juosei in the spring of 2006. Skullman, which is a manga by Shotaro Ishinomori, so Cyborg 009. And also this year, Bones executed a genre pivot and adapted the popular girls manga Ouran High School Host Club, where we have a poor but hardworking Haruhi. She attends a high school for the rich and famous on an academic scholarship, but then she runs afoul of the school's host club. Basically, it's a club of handsome rich boys who entertain all of the pretty rich girls for a fee. Haruhi is recruited into the host club because she's got more of a gender-neutral androgynous charm to her. So she has to work off her debt by becoming a host, but she must keep the fact that she's a girl a secret from her customers. And then back to the original series front, we again show Aikawa's Ghost Slayer Ayashi, Tensai Okumura's Darker Than Black, which is like Black Ops agents with superpowers, but they got to pay a price for these powers. It's like a contract. And Darker Than Black got a sequel in 2009 after enjoying mostly positive reviews and sales. We also have the excellent samurai action film Sword of the Stranger, directed by Masahiro Ando. March of 2008, Cinema Citrus was founded, former staffers of Bones and Production IG. So Studio Rundown number 9 is Cinema Citrus. They've collaborated with Production IG and Bones on multiple projects in their early days, like I said, the Eureka 7 movie, as well as staffers from Bones and IG have pitched in on other big titles, namely Made in Abyss, which is our episode number 7. But the big adaptation for Bones in 2008 was the popular action comedy manga Soul Eater, authored by Atsushi Okubo of Fire Force nowadays. Soul Eater takes place in the fictional Death City, Nevada in the United States, and it's essentially a military training school called the Death Weapon Meister Academy, run by Lord Death himself. And in this world, you have humans who can transform themselves into weapons. They are wielded by a partner human called a Meister. And so Soul Eater basically follows a trio of Meister weapon pairs. Their general goal is to empower their weapon partners with the souls of 99 evil humans and one witch. And this will grant the weapon a massive power boost and the privilege of being wielded by Lord Death as one of his death scythes. Gorgeous action scenes. This was a very popular t-shirt at Hot Topic. Soul Eater's anime also went into an original direction from the manga storyline. I swear, every couple of months we get a rumor about a Soul Eater readaptation, especially after our next subject, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, which is a manga-accurate readaptation of the Fullmetal Alchemist storyline. Again, one of the most popular anime of all time. This ran from spring 2009 to summer of 2010 and was also the #1 spot for the aggregate Site My Anime list for almost 15 years before finally being toppled for real by 2024's Frieren Beyond Journey's End. And since then, I think Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is settled comfortably at like #2 or 3. But yeah, Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is like the big bones show of to kick off the 2010s. The 2010s was also marked by collaborations with Western properties. So I have two here. The first one is they participated in the Halo Legends anthology series. So they did one segment called Prototype in what was an 8-episode short OVA series. We also have the anime Hero Man. It's based on a comic by Stan Lee and aired in the spring of 2010. And then there's also an interesting entry in the Bones catalog. It's a sci-fi action series, Zammed Lost Memories, which was produced exclusively for the launch of the PlayStation Network's video download service in 2008, with an eventual home video released by Sentai Filmworks in 2010. But fall 2010 was a return to anime original territory with the School Life mecha series Star Driver, which if you're a fan of Kill la Kill or Revolutionary Girl Utena, Star Driver is basically that, but with mecha. There's also a standalone movie for Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood. This was The Sacred Star of Milos, also in 2011. There's the aforementioned Eureka 7 sequel in 2012, and then Star Driver got a movie in 2013. And from August 2013 to August 2014, there was a kids anime, Tenkai Nights, which is a Japanese-Canadian mecha anime series produced for the toy company Spin Master. And Tenkai Nights was to promote a particular series of like transforming block toys. It aired on Cartoon Network and Canada's Teletoon a full year before premiering on Japan's TV Tokyo. We have the light novel and manga series Go Sick in 2011, two science fiction novels, Number 6 and Ungo in 2011, and the manga Blast of Tempest in the fall 2012. Another good entry is 2014's January 2014's, as well as a sequel in 2015. This is Noragami Stray Gods, based on the manga by Toka Adachi. We follow a homeless war deity, Yato, in the modern day as he struggles to make ends meet, but his ultimate dream is to gather enough followers and construct a shrine and be a peaceful and friendly and helpful god. But again, he's a war god, so he has a pretty dark past that he hides behind his cheerful demeanor. The gods of Noragami contract with spirits called Shinki, transforming spirits, and they fend off ghosts and negative karma that haunts humanity. Soul Eater Not. This is a side story manga in the Soul Eater main story. It starts off as a cutesy slice of life series, but switches to darker themes. We have Captain Earth. This is an anime original mecha series where a high school student pilots a giant robot called the Earth Engine Impactor. He protects the planet from an invading alien force that seeks to drain all of humanity's life force in order to maintain their own immortality. Blood Blockade Battlefront, a big one, adapting the Jump Squared manga about a supernatural crime fighting in basically New York. It got a second season in 2017. Snow White with the Red Hair. Again, another adaptation. Summer 2015, a sequel season in 2016. This is following a girl named Shirayuki. She's a medicine woman with red hair who is chased out of her country by the tyrannical prince, only to run into and fall in love with the prince of the neighboring country. And then we have Sanrio's Show by Rock, which is an idol singing anime based on a mobile rhythm game. The characters are by Sanrio, which has turned into a small franchise by itself. Its 2015 and 2016 seasons were animated by Bones, and then its 2020 entries were animated by Cinema Citrus. But I want to take a sidebar here to talk about Shinichiro Watanabe, because again, he was the first collaborator with Bones, but then he went to Manglobe and others. Well, in 2014, he came back, he said, okay, we really want to work together again. So in 2014, Shinichiro Watanabe and Bones put out Space Dandy. So it's an anime original space opera slapstick comedy / parody that had a split season run in winter and summer of 2014. And basically, Dandy is a space hunter with a pompadour. He's a guy who roams the galaxy in search of new alien species to discover and get paid for, alongside his companions Meow, a catman from Beltagese, and QT, who's a worn-out robot vacuum who's essentially Marvin from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, just always depressed. It's a zany, wacky, self-aware, doesn't have much of a plot for much of its runtime. A lot of episodes are also standalone, as I mentioned, with guest directors. We were basically friends and collaborators of Shinichiro Watanabe. And the next one I want to talk about, again, we're jumping into like 2022. This is Carol and Tuesday. Carol and Tuesday are two girls who sing homespun lyrics on the sidewalk, while the music industry at large is wholly reliant on AI. Just all kinds of genres get blended in crazy and unique ways, while Carol and Tuesday are sitting on the sidewalk singing about doing the laundry. But of course, in 2016, we had the three major adaptations that, again, just put Bones on another level. The first, and arguably the biggest, is My Hero Academia, which has been running since 2016 and recently concluded its main series run this year in fall of 2025. So this is the massively popular Weekly Shonen Jump manga authored by Kohei Horikoshi, in which 80% of the human population possesses quirks, which are basically superpowers. But for our quirkless main character, Izuku Deku Midoriya, his life is full of doubters and bullies, yet Deku still has big dreams of becoming a hero like his idol All Might, who's like the #1 biggest hero in Japan. One day, All Might witnesses Deku's act of bravery against a rampaging villain, again, despite not having any superpowers. And so All Might decides to make Deku the successor to his quirk, One for All, which is All Might's power that can be directly inherited by a willing host. And so All Might needs to do this because in his last fight, he was severely injured by his arch-nemesis, who possesses the ability-stealing quirk of All for One, and as such is a major threat to world stability. And so thanks to his new quirk, One for All, Deku can now attend the High School for Heroes UA and has 7 seasons and 4 movies worth of adventures with his classmates and repeatedly go up against the League of Villains. And of course, this year was the final confrontation with the holder of All for One. And a side series, My Hero Academia Vigilantes, just began in early 2025. A second season's on its way for next year, 2026. The second big adaptation for Bones, again, beginning in 2016, this is Mob Psycho 100, based on the smash hit web series authored by One of chiefly One Punch Man. The anime is directed by Yuzuru Tachikawa of Death Parade, Decadence, Blue Giant. And this story is Shigeo Mob Kageyama is a kid with immense psychic powers that threaten to run wild whenever his emotions aren't in check. So to compensate, Mob basically keeps everything trapped in a bottle, which is very hard to do as a middle schooler with a crush. Mob's mentor is a con man with a heart of gold and best dad Regan Arataka, who essentially employs Mob as a ghost hunter as part of his training. Evil spirits and psychic adversaries stand between Mob and inner peace. And while this is an action series, Mob Psycho is really all about gaining self-confidence and the pursuit of happiness and self-improvement over power. Mob Psycho ran for 3 seasons, so 2016, 2019, and 2022. And yeah, this is one of Bones' big pillars next to My Hero and Full Metal Alchemist. Adaptation pillar number 4 is probably Bungo Stray Dogs. Again, began in 2016. It's a popular series about detectives with superpowers, and they derive their superpowers and names based on authors from the 19th and 20th centuries. This has 5 seasons as of this recording. The most recent was summer of 2023, which also got an OVA in 2017. They got a movie in 2018. They also have a spin-off, a short-form series, Bungo Stray Dogs 1, 2021, and then we're getting a new season next year in 26. Outside of the anime, it's a live-action movie. It's gotten a stage play, light novels, video games. Bungo Stray Dogs is a big deal. And so as we close out the end of the 2010s and we go into the 2020s, is including those 3 adaptations. Again, this is from 2016 and beyond, those 3 series were the bulk of Bones' output. But these are what they were also working on in the 2020s. So we had the Pokemon special music video in 2020, Gotcha. This was set to Acacia by the band Bump of Chickens, who is a music video. Jose the Tiger and the Fish, also in 2020, based on the popular romance short story that has been adapted several times into live action. Skate the Infinity, an anime original skateboarding series created and directed by Hiroko Utsumi. So a free Iwatobi Swim Club, as well as director of Banana Fish. We're getting a sequel for that in 2026. The vampire fantasy manga, they adapted Case Study of Vanitas in 2021, and also in 2021 on Netflix, Bones adapted Mark Millar's Super Crooks. Time Patrol Bon in 2024. So this is a love letter to mangaka Fujio F. Fujiko, chiefly of who created Doraemon. That's his like really big thing. We also have the somewhat cozy Magical Girl series, also in 2024. The Magical Girl and the Evil Lieutenant used to be arch enemies. It's in the middle of all of this. In 2023, Bones announced a new anime original project as part of their celebration of the 25th anniversary as a studio. And so the name of this anime was, of course, Metallic Rouge. And so as part of the promotional tour for Metallic Rouge, Masahiko Minami and others went on the interview circuit with websites, outlets, conventions to talk about the past 25 years, the history of Studio Bones. Crunchyroll also has a 4-part documentary series titled Bones 25 Dreaming Forward, which has a lot of these personal anecdotes. And Metallic Rouge aired in the winter 2024 season, and I don't think it quite lived up to the hype. It was one of those, like, very flashy visuals, had a solid art direction, but the story was kind of all over the place. But Metallic Rouge is essentially, we have superpowered agents tracking down various androids a la, like, Robot Master style. In October of 2024, Bones announced a spin-off of their production department side of the business. This new entity is called Bones Film. It's headed by Minami-san, as well as producer Yoshihiro Oyabu. So Bones Film is the new studio credit moving forward into 2025. So My Hero Academia Vigilantes is credited to Bones Film. Gachi Yakuto came out in summer 2025 and just ended. Based on the popular manga by Kei Urana, she was once the understudy of Okubo on his manga Fire Force. Gachi Yakuta is like the grungy, gritty, dirty world. Like you've got this pure society on top that like all trash is just abhorrent, and they dump everything down onto the surface world. And so our poor boy Rudo is framed for a crime that he didn't commit. So he was already living in the slum area of the upper world. Now he's at the bottom and having to learn how to survive. And it is kind of Soul Eater coded, where Rudo and others have a power called Givers. And the Givers can basically imbue a sacred or an object special to them with the power to transform an everyday object into a tool of badassery and destruction. And yeah, we're going to get more seasons of that, and I am very much looking forward to it. And like I said, as we're wrapping up this episode, the final season of Academia just wrapped, and Bones Film is continuing with My Hero Academia Vigilantes in 2026 and beyond. We also have an upcoming comedy manga adaptation, Marriage Toxin, has also been announced for sometime in 2026. And of course, we are getting another Hiromu Arakawa manga adaptation, Demons of the Shadow Realm. The trailers have me very excited. This is going to be a really cool action-packed show. And so that, as of this recording, is the history of Studio Bones. What do you guys think of Studio Bones? Tell me your thoughts. Who's your favorite director, your favorite show, animator, creative? Let me know down in the comments, and I'll see you on the next one.